Now we are going to understand how we can break things down into the basic shapes that we have learned about. Cone, cube, cylinder, sphere, things like that, and understand that all objects, whether they are more organic and free-flowing, kind of like this bird, how we can structure it to be one of these basic shapes and turn that into a sufficient drawing of whatever it may be. Now for me, I'm going to use a picture that I've printed off, but you guys have the option to use objects that you see from real life. It would just be very difficult for me to show you how to draw something that I found realistically when you don't have the angle as to which how I see it. So for this portion, you can do an image that you found online. Unsplash.com is a really good source with free images that you don't have to worry about copyright with. But if you do have an object that really gravitates to you, such as a video game controller or a book or something like that that you enjoy, that represents who you are, you may do that. But once again, for the purposes of this, I can't really show you the drawing of that from the angle at which I am recording this. So I'm going to come in with a Sharpie, and with this Sharpie I'm just going to break it down into the basic shapes that we talked about. So the head kind of separates itself from the body. So if I outline the head very kind of roughly, that's a circle. Okay, so I just outline the head and now it's become a circle. The beak is the basic shape of a triangle, okay, or a cone after we add highlights and shadows. The body is kind of this longer oval. Okay, this portion of the tail is like a rectangle. And then finally, the very bottom of the tail, we have another triangle. Okay, you don't have to do this. You can if you want to. I printed out two versions of the picture, so I have the one I can reference with the basic shapes, and then the real one that I can reference where I can see everything still because part of the Sharpie covered up some of the image printed out. So from there, you are going to want to go into your sketchbook on your next page and start your drawing of whatever you selected. Now I'm going to show you some do's and don'ts first on just side computer paper, but I have my paper here. I'm just going to use my 6B so it's dark enough so you can see it, but you would use an HB. Always start your drawings with an HB because it's not too dark and it's not too light and it is easily erasable. So I've broken the head down into a circle. Okay. One thing that you don't want to do, if you have all this space on your paper, you don't want to make this drawing this big and then goes off the page. Okay, that would be a no-no. Okay, way too small for the paper we have. Okay, same thing with the idea of drawing way too big. If I draw the head this big and then the body this big with that basic shape I broke it down into, and the beak goes off the page and the rectangle goes off, then that is way too large. So you need to understand composition and how you are going to fill the page sufficiently with what you are presented with. If your image is more vertical or portrait oriented, you may do your paper this way. Say if your image is more landscape or horizontal, you can do it this way. Either way works. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to my HB since this is going to be my actual drawing and get started with understanding the basic shapes that I broke this bird down into and understanding how big to draw it. You always want to start a drawing with a gesture drawing. Gesture means quick, light, easy, not pressing too hard because the majority of it will be erased. Instead of me coming in and being super specific with this shape, I'm just going to come in and be light and free flowing, understanding size, proportion, and making sure I'm drawing an adequate size image on the paper that I've been provided for a successful composition. Composition meaning the entire picture itself. So once again, I broke the head down. My paper is a little bit bigger than the printed out version, so I'm going to want to draw a little bit bigger. So I'm going to come in, and once again, gesture drawing is quick, light. I'm making many movements at a time. So I'm going to come in, understand the head is a little ovally. And now I have front of the head. Okay, notice all those lines that I've got going on there. I can erase them when I don't need them anymore, but that was a quick, light understanding. I didn't press super hard and make it so then I can't erase it or anything. I'm understanding where the beak comes off. The beak is a little bit higher up on the head that I just drew. You want to use social cues, if you will, or placement ideas of where things belong in terms of what you've already drawn. So I've already drawn the head. I can see that the beak is a little bit up. It's not right in the middle. And so I'll push it up a little bit, creating that triangle shape that I outlined. Understanding how big it is. If you want to get specific, you can like kind of measure the size of the head with your pencil. And then the beak is just a little bit smaller than the size of the head. So now I'm going to measure the head I've drawn. Go just a bit shorter. Now I've understood how big my beak needs to be. Okay. Now the outside of the head kind of lines up where the body puffs out. So I'm going to shoot straight down. Understand that. And I'm going to draw the shape of the body. Okay. We have some frillies going on here with the feathers. We have the feet. Now I've got a basic shape of kind of like a rectangle for the bottom of the tail, or the middle of the tail. Okay, and then a triangle to create the bottom of the tail there. I've got this twig going through, connect that where the feet are connected, or are already drawn. And that goes off the page, or cropped. Make sure that's straight all the way through. Okay. Now I have the basic shape of my bird drawn on my paper at a sufficient size. So go ahead and find your image, practice the drawing of it, and get it down with the basic shapes. And then next we'll talk about starting to add the highlights, shadows, details, and all the good stuff to make the bird look super realistic and utilize hatching, cross-hatching, blending, and the range of pencils that we've been provided to create the highlights and shadows to make a realistic drawing.